think you still have that inner desire to do the track. You're totally focused only what happens on the track when you're out there. There's no thinking about anything to do with the family at all.
So kids don't slow you down?
No, I personally don't think.
Quote that it's
Alan Prossett didn't harm. He's one of those. He had a family around him. So no, it's a myth. No.
Okay, so here we are with Lewis Hamilton back out on track. So Johnny, just how much would you like to be going in that car right now?
Well,
I think your neck would struggle.
For sure it would struggle. for sure it was. It is pretty immense what these cars do. Yeah.
It's the steering wheel going.
Yeah.
What is he doing? Some aero.
But even on that little bit we got through that sort of turn 14-15 is how that car changes direction, one, but it's the amount of throttle they carry through. They hardly come off the throttle. They just do it right in the middle of the left and the right of 15, and everyone else is coming off maybe once but a couple of times. But you hear the difference is huge from that point of view. And as soon as you're not coming off the throttle, that means you're carrying that speed, and that is where you see these guys just having the brilliant confidence to sort of just lean on it, and it will respond underneath you perfectly.
How much throttle movement do these cars have?
Say again.
Throttle movement. So you're feeding in 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
What is it? 5 centimeters of movement?
Yeah. Well, it does vary. Remember, Jacques Villeneuve had about 3 millimeters of. He was ridiculous.
It's not much of an exaggeration.
No, it was ridiculous what he had. He was a switch. I don't know how they he drove it, but that was how he had it. So everybody have a slightly different map in there. There'll be different sort of shapes to where it picks up, to where the mid power comes in, and you're just doing it in a personal way. But I don't know. You've got that sort of 20 odd.
Well, the better your car, the better balance, the more grip. I suppose the shorter.
Yes, because you can carry it. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Did you ever drive? I'm quite good on your career, but I can't remember this. Did you ever the sort of mid 80s? Have you ever driven one of those 1,500 brake horsepower?
Well, I did. It was about, I think, when I did the Benetton in '87, my very first test.
One of those monsters.
One of those monsters, yes. And of course it wasn't fly-by-wire or anything else. It was just sort of a little rocker, sort of throttle cable linked to the power unit itself. And you could change that. I always remember Ayrton Senna, and I think Alain Prost as well. They worked so hard on the throttle mechanism to get the absolute perfect, let's say, map that they wanted to the car. And I drove that in 88, just before I had my crash. And for a turbo, again, sort of 1,000 horsepower-ish, it was like driving a normally aspirated engine, because the mechanism they had worked on was just perfection, effectively, and it just had this brilliant drivability. When it kicked in, it didn't matter because you had the control through the throttle. So these guys have probably more tools to fettle their
and you did have lag. You had turbo lag.
Yes, but because the throttle mechanism was so good, your connection from your foot to that power coming in, it didn't really sort of exist, the lag, because you had complete control of it. When you've got a throttle that's rather lively and then it kicks in, you're not going to be able to control it. So it's all about having your feeling from the tips of your toes to that power torque when it comes in. And once you've got that sort of relationship, you both work, in an unthought mentality of getting the best from that power unit, that grip that you've got, and the control is just, you don't even think about it.
Well, we're riding with Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, heading down to turn 1. I say another beautiful day of testing. I'm surprised it took Red Bull so long to come up with a different team name. Toro Rosso never really did it for me. I know it's...
Didn't it?
No, as a name. Did you like it? I wish they kept the name Minardi, actually. Love the name
Minardi.
But,
yes.
But, so as we ride in car, Johnny, just give us some feedback as to what the car's doing. Can you tell? I know it's on the white-walled hard tyre, so it's not obviously as much grip as if you had the soft tyre on, but what is this car telling you?
Well, I'm mainly looking at the steering input itself. That always gives you a good impression if there's a little bit of sort of movement on the steering itself. That means when you're soaring at the steering wheel, that means that sort of the rear end, it's more sort of focused on the front, and the front is something that you want the grip, but then you don't want it to interfere with the rear end. And at the present time, you see it's quite smooth with the input that he's getting. It'd be interesting to see exactly what we get in this slower speed mechanical area, especially now through this left, but more importantly, the right-hander. Yeah, see, it looks very, very smooth, but again, that goes down to just what the grip you got. You can have the balance, but of course then it's down to how much aerodynamic grip, mechanical grip, you've got even at those low speeds. So he will be probably a good couple of Ks down on a Mercedes, for example, but to try and get that couple of Ks is an absolute nightmare. But you can see the way Lewis is there, he's able to sort of almost chuck it at that yellow sausage curb. It sort of hits it, sits down and just accelerates straight out of it. You know, you can be so aggressive with a car that pretty much has a perfect balance.
And the Mercedes is certainly looking very strong. So here it is through turn 3. Turn 3 is flat in one of these cars now, isn't it? All the way through. And then although he's not using all the road, is he? So no, it doesn't strike me as a particularly quick lap. But how much do you think 7 titles weighs on this man's mind? Do you think I don't know, do you think it eats at him every day, every waking hour, or do you think he is able to blank it out and just focus on the here and now, and if it all comes together it does, if it doesn't it doesn't?
I think it's sort of the here and now, but he wants it, and that's something that it's always probably maybe not the 7 thinking he'd equal Michael, but I think now he knows how close the leader has been for the last couple of seasons, edging closer, that it's there, but it's the here and now, because he's got to be able to work on it. Like he was talking the other day with that sort of new steering mechanism that they've got, is how the team is giving him the right vibes, that they're still trying to push the envelope of design and the ability to try and get the best car that will keep them ahead of everybody else. But that relationship is so strong. Mercedes want it, he wants it. You know, to me, that's just the perfect scenario that as a driver you need.
And you know, Lewis, do you think if he ends his career without having got that 7th title, somehow in his mind he will have failed?
I don't think he's failed by a long shot.
No, but I'm not saying do you think he's failed. Do you think he will think he's failed?
I think it will be frustrating, and it will be very easy for him to possibly look back on his year with Nico and sort of said, I should have had that one. But life's not like that. Life's not always fair. Life doesn't quite give you all the time what you need. Was it unfair? I don't think it was. I thought that was just what racing is all about. Yeah, he had a bit more bad luck, but that's happened for decades where drivers should have won it. Nigel Mansell should have won it, before he had that blowout in Australia, for example. It just happens that way. I don't see it. I think he'll be able to achieve it this year, because I think he's more complete, which is quite scary this year, and I think I'm more prepared than I think he's ever been before, because I think he's hungry to get that 7.
I think he could also point to 2007 as well as one that got away.
Of course, yeah.
That gravel trap at the Chinese Grand Prix. You guys listening at home, if you haven't seen it, it's a horrible bit of footage.
That's racing. That's the way it goes.
Was it the intermediate tyres were completely
and he
gone?
should have come in about sort of 4 or 5 laps before that, before they sort of run out of rubber.
And that's when Kimi's sort of championship momentum really started to get going, didn't it? But now, as we watch this McLaren, so Lando Norris back out on track. Interesting, his DRS is not open coming down the pit straight. But McLaren, I had lunch with your old boss the other day, Flavio Briatore, and one of the more bizarre lunches I've ever had, if I'm honest with you. But it was interesting. Now, he said, I don't think he's a great fan of Ron Dennis, former boss of the McLaren Formula 1 team, for those who aren't aware. And he said that Ron was just a guy who lucked into it. Right place, right time.
Yeah, right. I think he has to look at the record books. I do believe Ron achieved much more than Flav. Much more. Lucked into it. You could equally say maybe the same with Flavio when he came into Benetton as well. No, I don't think that's the case.
John, he
worked
also,
at it.
John, you like this. He also referred to Peter Collins, of course, who,
Did he?
used to run the
Yeah.
Benetton Formula 1 team, and then he referred to Peter Collins as Phil Collins.
As what?
Phil Collins.
Right.
No, you don't mean the pop star, Flavio.
No.
You mean Peter Collins. And then,
Wow.
anyway, there we go. But
Crikey.
I know
How unfair that.
he was just outrageously outspoken, and I do miss
Those
characters like that,
Yeah.
because you know
He was a character.
he was a character. There's no getting away from that.
He was I always thought he was one of the best actors we had as well. Because whenever the camera went to him on the pit wall, suddenly he started speaking. He was never speaking to anybody. He was just
He
sort
hadn't
of
pressed the button, he
acting-
was just talking to- yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He'd seen
Strategy,
it. Yeah, it looked like
pit,
it.
pit. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, when he came into Formula 1, which was my first season, and when Peter Collins was actually running it, he came in with a mission to take that over. And Peter had been around for a long time. Peter was very influential in my career for sure. And Peter had a passion, and still does have a passion for the sport, and he was very much focused on doing the best job that he could do for Benetton at that time. And Flavio, just in Flavio's way, just made his life very difficult because he was after his spot.
Well, and also Flavio had the ear of the boss, didn't he?
Yeah,
Luciano
of course, there you
Benetton
go.
was there.
Had
He
the-
put him in
yeah.
as no, he didn't come in as he came in as commercial director, didn't he? Not commercial director. The rest, as they say,
Yes, with a mission.
is history. Do you know what? So I was interviewing him in his office, and then he said, "What are you doing for the rest of the day? When's your flight back to England?" So I said, "Oh, it's not till this evening. Do you want to come and have lunch with me in my restaurant? Because he's got a lovely Italian restaurant, I must say, near Casino Square in Monaco." So I said yes, and of course the Rolls Royce pulled up outside the office. In we jumped. We were driven about 200 metres to the
Yes,
as
that's
you do.
about right.
Anyway, there we go. Flavio Briatore, now a restaurateur, billionaire and everything. So, Antonio Giovinazzi now. Now look, here's a guy. So he's up against Kimi Räikkönen. Okay. I love talking about drivers as we go
me
in, isn't
too.
it? And
yeah.
you're saying you've got the difficult job that Alex Albon has up against Max Verstappen for